Hi, this is Louise Smart. So this is a podcast on vulnerability versus invulnerability. Vulnerability is a state of undefendedness. But when you really think about that, it always implies some kind of projection of potential risk for attack. Vulnerability is exposure to any physical, mental, emotional, energetic, psychic, collective, planetary or cosmic threat that you can think of. So just ponder that for a moment, because so much is being said about vulnerability as the perfect sort of state for more enlightenment, illumination, breakthroughs. And there is a truth in that. But it's not the end of the Holy Grail. It's a stage that we go through. And just listen a little bit further and I'll be explaining that stage of vulnerability and what it is. So to really know our invulnerability, it takes total relinquishment of all fear of adversity projected onto life by our separated ego self. It takes total realignment of our identity with our original true nature, our sovereign, undefended invulnerability that cannot be threatened. That's why it's invulnerable. It's unthreatened, without opposite. And that takes transformation work. You can't just do this from your head or with more integration of your shadow. As part of the transition, we do indeed go through a phase where our ego feels vulnerable and raw because we have stripped it of defenses and control, all of its power over us as our falsely perceived identity. The ego's got nothing left to hang on to, nothing left for habitual experience of comfort. We're wide open, often quite emotionally exhausted. So to shift allegiance to the safety, peace and security of our invulnerability, we have to go much, much further and deeper than this temporary ego vulnerability stage. So to really cut it when it comes to full sovereignty, not least of all, it takes a profound willingness to let go of all belief in threat. And that is a huge undoing. But the reward is that it gives rise to an unshakable knowing of your safety, of your security, and your dominion over all appearance of adversity. Yeah, it's a big bloody deal. Because vulnerability is really where we have come to a point often where we've been taken to our knees. We've got no more fight left in us. We've got nothing else left that we can offer, that we can use to get back up again. We're open, we're wide open. And I question why we aspire to risk, go into that undefendedness of vulnerability and stay there. You don't want to stay there. You want to move into power, into your sovereign power, where you can know yourself as the invulnerability of love, of source consciousness. That is what we all are. And it's what we've always been, and it's what we continue to be, despite the very convincing appearances to the contrary. And we take ourselves back in time to our inception, into lifetimes, into separation consciousness, into bodies which are the epitome of separation, separate bodies. And without wishing to, crash in on how we perceive reality, your body and your thoughts and your mind, which you think is all separate from other people, is an illusionary projection of the ego that was created as soon as we separated from love. So if you think of your your true state of being in the heart of God, heart of love. And when we've stepped outside of that, that is the action of separation. It is we've done that. We've done that from an innocent space of our God self, wanting to explore reality outside of love, separate from love. It's a choice. So when we get to a space where we reclaim our invulnerability, in other words, we re-own and re-identify ourselves as our source consciousness, as love, we lose that sense of separation and the fear that holds it in place. And what we are, therefore, needs no defense, because in the invulnerability of love, you are everything, and there is no conflict because you're not in separation. Separation implies that there are two things, you and what you're separated from. If you're in your unity consciousness space as love, as part of source, you are it, and you can't separate from yourself because you are everything anyway. It's all connected. So what we are needs no defense, and certainly not vulnerability to anything or anyone, because everything and everyone is connected at this source level of consciousness. So we're invulnerable to everything apart from love. We need to be vulnerable to love. We need to be open into our own love. And that is only a threat to our ego, which thrives on the absence of love, be that betrayal, lack, victimhood, sickness, conflict, and all appearances of adversity and being badly treated. All of that is projected onto our physical reality by that separated mind, by the ego mind. And that's what creates adversity, and has done since the beginning of separation, and therefore since the beginning of time and recorded history. That is what we see out in the world. It's a projection of our separation from love. But it's illusory because it can collapse. When you know yourself as love truly, and abide there and rest there in a space inside yourself, in the heart of love, where you are met by God as love, as consciousness itself, where you are met there and you merge yourself as one with that love, then you cannot experience suffering. And you've got to do this for yourself. The words are not going to cut it. This is a journey that you do, that you transition out of the belief in threat and the projection of threat, and then the fear of the threat manifested that you created. When you withdraw allegiance to all of that, you come back into the instant that you do that, you come back into love, which doesn't have any history. It's timeless, but it is all powerful and has all dominion over all the illusions that you've created, all the manifestations of threat and fear and suffering and attack and conflict and lack and limitation and betrayal and all the other experiences that we try to resist, not knowing that we created them from this belief in threat. And that's what the ego is all about. It's all about creating problems and trying to solve problems from the position of separation. And that cannot be ultimately successful. You can do temporary measures, temporary medical measures, temporary fixes on your emotional body, on your inner child, on your inner adolescent. All of those need to be looked at, but the final way that we completely clear up our addiction to threat and adversity and suffering, that is our karmic cycle. It's staying within the belief in threat, in the belief that someone is innocent at the expense of someone's guilt or your own guilt, that your true innocence doesn't have any opposite. it's eternally, and it's eternal, and it can collapse anything in its wake. And to really reside in there is to really know your true power, and it is omnipotence, and it's not grandiose, it's not hubris, it's actually the opposite. To know yourself as love, to know yourself as God, it's arrogant to think you're anything else. Separation is the height of arrogance. So withdrawing our allegiance to how we project adversity and pull right back into the core of our being, right into the center, deep, deep, deep in our heart. It's to a tiny space almost, but then it goes into expansion. You feel the love there that is so all-knowing and all-powerful. And it's all-inclusive, because love isn't love if it isn't protection, if it isn't security, if it isn't supply, if it isn't joy, if it isn't happiness, if it isn't fulfillment. And it's all of those things without opposite. That's a tall order, because we are so conditioned into wanting what we want that also can be threatened and taken away from us, whether that's health, whether that's success, whether that's, loving relationships. Whatever we believe we can attain, we also believe that it can be taken from us. We're conditioned to believe that. It's an illusion. That's not love, that's threat. So we've got to pull ourselves right back into our core and undo all of those beliefs in threat. And we need help doing that. We need the help, not of our ego, which is very clever at creating devices, at creating systems. We've got to let go of it all. We've got to go back to something much more powerful and expansive, and that is wholly our higher self, that can do the work for us and on our behalf, to help us do that letting go of the guilt that we ever separated and abandoned love, that we then project onto our material reality and our body. We project that guilt onto it, and it suffers. Our ego suffers. It's our ego that gets triggered. It's our inner child that gets triggered. It's our inner adolescent that gets triggered. It's all the unhealed aspects of ourselves that gets triggered. Our ego gets emotional. Our ego gets indignant. Our ego gets resentful and hateful and revengeful. And also it's our ego that holds on to victimhood, holds on to judgments and grudges and resentments. It's the ego that does that, not your true self. So the work that I do with people is shifting your identity from the ego belief in threat and fear and suffering and endurance to the true identity of our holy self at one with love, source, God, universal intelligence, whatever you want to call it. We all know it's available to us. It's a case of whether we believe we're worthy of that true innocence, where love is holding everything and we're aligned with it and we're guided by that. Not the ego's concept of love, which is basically giving to get. It's manipulation. It's really underpinning human love is the fear that it can be taken away from you, especially in relationships. So that's the work that I do with clients. And what I can say to you is that if what I'm saying is resonant, then you probably got to the point where you know that you're ready for this transformational work, when you've really totally had enough of being strong, of being a warrior and fielding challenges, whether it's in your work, your business, your home life. And you know that being overwhelmed and being victimized by your sensitivity to others in the world and world energies, or psychic energies in the form of psychic attack, it's not an inevitability, it's a conditioning. You're also ready for this work when you know instinctively that you're done with the timelines of balancing your karma, what I call the karma drama cycle, which is really the ego's relentless perpetuation of innocent victimhood at the expense of another's or others or your own guilt, and vice versa. You're done with enduring compromise and conflict. You have exhausted all shadow integration work, and you know that isn't what you need anymore. So if you're recognizing yourself here, I'm going to say bravo, because it's taken you all this time. It's taken lifetimes to get to the stage where you're done with vulnerability and coping, and you know that you can have it all. And it's all down to wonderful, glorious you as a cherished, knowing yourself as an unconditionally cherished child of love, to now claim your sovereign freedom and dominion over your reality, the power to collapse seeming obstacles. No matter how difficult they appear, you have that power within you, in and through you, through the power of love. You have it. But to access it, you have got to undo your belief in threat, your allegiance to threat, and the guilt of your sense of abandoning God or love itself that you project onto the world, onto yourself, onto your body, onto others. That has to be undone. And you need to know how to access the help from that, for that, to help you release all of that, so that then you automatically just fall into the arms of love, the arms of source. You merge as one with that. You know your identity is that. You know your power is that. It is a felt, lived experience from deep within that carries with it the dominion over all other appearances and all other people's projections. You start to learn how to heal both your own, the collective, animals, and how all of adversity and conflict on the planet, between planets from our galactic history, has all been a projection of our separation from each other as source, knowing that unity. And when we connect in back to that unity, it doesn't matter what's going on in the news, especially now. It doesn't matter what we see as threat. We are immune to that threat by knowing who we are. And we know when to move out of the line of fire. We instinctively know how self-protection is innate through our identity. So if you're interested to work with me, I have a number of programs. So take a look at the website. The link will be attached to this audio podcast. And if you don't see anything there that resonates, or you want something different, something more bespoke, something more in line with your particular budget over a specific time, I can work with that within reason. So book yourself a free connect call. This free connect call will discuss your needs and the best way that I can help you. It is not a free therapy session. Please understand that. So I will help you as much as I can in guiding you and creating something unique for you. Or you choose from either my existing programs, which are very bespoke anyway. If you want something a bit more different and aligned with your budget and timeline, let me know. I'll see what I can do for you. The website is in the drop-down box of this YouTube recording. That's Louise Smart. Thank you so much for listening.